In what cases would a family typically make a decision to do an adoption? In what cases would a child typically need to be adopted? Does an adopted child have the same value to the family as a biological child? Do you think it would be hard to be an adopted child? Is there any difference between a family who has adopted children and a family who has biological children? Do you believe that the parents of an adopted child love that child just as they would a biological child? If you were an adopted child or you had an adopted sibling, do you think you would be any different than you are now?
Hi, I'm Chelsea.
I'm Croesus.
I'm Zoe.
And I'm Kaylee.
What do they do?
In what cases do you guys think a family would decide to adopt a child?
Maybe if they can't have their own children, if they're not physically able to.
And I feel like a family might adopt a child if they maybe wait, I missed that.
Keep going.
A family might adopt a child because there are so many children that were put up for adoption that don't have loving homes, and they just want to give them one.
And maybe because, not because randomly one day God put in their path this adopted child, because God, from the beginning of time, had that child planned out for that family. And I think that's a bit, I can't speak, a big factor on not just because the parent wants a child. They may have never expected to have a child, but God put that child in their path.
In what situations do you guys think a child would need to be adopted?
I think that maybe if they lost both of their parents in some sort of accident or something.
Or if their parents felt like they couldn't provide enough for the child and give them a happy life, and they put them up for adoption.
Or what about Croesus's situation?
The child in my situation would be wanting to leave, in my situation, my mother remarrying another man, and my biological father, me wanting to leave his last name behind and being adopted by my new father, and the father God always put in my path. Thank you, Lord. And then oh my gosh, what was I supposed to say? And wanting to leave that past behind and all that burden of sharing something still with your biological father, your biological mother that you don't have contact with anymore. Just leaving that behind and being able to share a last name even as the person can really just impact and change your life, which is my situation. Do you think that children who are adopted have the same value as children who are biologically related to the parent?
Yes.
Yeah, I think they have a lot. I mean, they're still part of the family, so they should all have the same value.
Yeah.
I also think it's because that child, it has the room for, that child can be a contributing member of the family as well as the biological child can, because, well, it's a person, a human that God has placed in that family, so God has a purpose for him or her to be in that family. And so God has all of them same value, and they're all his children.
Do you guys think it would be hard to be an adopted child?
I think in some ways it could be, wondering who your family was in the past, especially if you were adopted really young and don't remember.
And I sometimes feel like if a child doesn't know where they come from, they feel like they've lost a part of themselves.
Yeah.
I think a child might have a hard time being adopted because they try to find their role in the family, what they're supposed to play, being how to be an older brother, how to be older sister even, or being a middle child or the youngest, or being a nearly full grown adult, still being adopted, all that kind of stuff, just finding your place and what God has put your role to be in the family.
Yeah, or if you were adopted when you were older, like as a teenager, you might wonder like why your parents put you up for adoption, and like you might feel connected to your old family still.
Do we believe that there's a difference between a family who has adopted a child and a family who is purely biological?
No, or at least there shouldn't be a difference.
Like, a difference being, I agree when you say no, there shouldn't be a difference, but there is a difference.
There is.
Being that child like being singled out for something he or she can't control, or that child being singled out purely because they're different. And that difference can be positive or negative at the same time. Like, it's always good to be different. You were made to be different. And so, but that difference also can be harmful. So I feel like there should be a difference in the personality, obviously, but there shouldn't be a difference between a family with an adopted child and a family without, because a family with an adopted child is the exact same. It's just they have an extra child now.
Yeah.
And just like the amount of love, because like it takes a lot of money and time to adopt a child, and then you go through all that work, and your purpose is just to like smother the children in love.
Like if a child was adopted later in life, they might not have as much of a connection with their adoptive parents. If they like remember their real parents, then it might be difficult for them. Do you believe that the parents of an adopted child love that child just as they would a biological child?
Yes, because if they took the time to adopt a child and the money, then they're going to love the child the same as they would a biological child.
I also think child to child, no defer to the race or anything, but that difference is within the personality of the child. But otherwise, a child to child, you would treat the adopted child how you treat your normal child, not normal child, your biological child, because a child to child, they should
They should be treated with love.
They should have the experience of growing up in a loving family.
If you were an adopted child, or you had an adopted sibling, do you think you would be any different than you are now?
Well, as the adopted going to be the adopted child in my family, I don't think there's much of a difference in my life other than finding a new role in my family. Instead of being the only child who didn't have as much responsibility, now I'm the older, I've been the older brother and officially going to be the older brother, and that's just put more responsibility on my back. And only difference is I have more people to love in my family now, and more people who love me back.
And I think my life would be different because I would have to I would question like, why did my parents give me up, and why? Like, I would have this big foggy cloud like in my past. Or if I had a sibling that was adopted, I would like go through the process with them.
Yeah, and you could have like different experiences in your past that make you who you would be in the future.
Like if you were an only child and your parents decided, and you were a biological child and your parents decided to adopt another child, it might make you question if you're enough.
Or if all the attention's going to the adopted child, you are going to feel, as you said, not enough, because their attention is now not as much as on you, but is split now, diverted half to the adopted child.
Which would be different than you're used to, getting all the attention.
Let the children speak.
Let the children speak.
Let the children speak.
Let the children speak.
Parents.
Let your children speak.